They left home and changed the world. What if the story of the Philippines isn't just about its 7,000 islands? What if its greatest chapter, its most defining legacy, was written not at home, but thousands of miles away, by the millions who left? It's a story that starts with a single man sparking a movement with a pen from across an ocean. It carries on with laborers who crossed the Pacific with nothing but hope, building new communities on foreign soil. And today, it's the story of millions of modern-day migrants who build the world's cities, care for its people, and power its economies. This is the chapter you might not know. This is the hidden legacy of the Filipinos who left home and changed the world. To really get the global Filipino, you have to go back to a time before Overseas Filipino Worker was even a phrase. You have to go back to the nation's birth, a birth that was sparked from abroad. The story begins with the man who would become the country's national hero, José Rizal. In the late 19th century, the Philippines was a colony, suffocating under 300 years of Spanish rule. Free speech was crushed, education was limited, and any real sense of national unity was stamped out by colonial authorities. But in Europe, a group of Filipino expatriates, the propaganda movement, was trying to change that. And their intellectual giant was Rizal. From cities like Madrid, Paris, and Berlin, Rizal waged a war not with swords, but with words. His novels, Noli Me Tangere and El Filibusterismo, were more than just stories. They were explosive social critiques, smuggled back into the Philippines and passed secretly from hand to hand. The books exposed the cruelty of the colonial government and the abuses of the friars, showing a society its own suffering. He didn't just tell a story. He gave a scattered people the words to see themselves as one nation, the Filipino nation. Rizal was, in many ways, the first and most influential overseas Filipino. He was an intellectual whose work from exile laid the moral and ideological spark for a revolution. But he himself wasn't calling for war. He was a reformist who believed in peaceful means and education, not violent revolution. He argued for representation, for basic human dignity, ideas that traveled across the globe and lit a fire in the hearts of his countrymen. When the Spanish colonial government executed Rizal in 1896, they thought they were putting out a flame. Instead, they ignited an inferno. His martyrdom was seen by many as the final tragic proof that peaceful reform was no longer an option. It became the catalyst that precipitated the Philippine Revolution, fueled by the ideas of a man who had shaped its soul from half a world away. Rizal's journey cemented a powerful recurring theme in the Filipino story, that sometimes the most profound changes at home are driven by those who have left it. He proved that distance doesn't weaken impact. Sometimes it amplifies it. As the 20th century began, the reasons for leaving the Philippines started to change. It was no longer just about revolutionary ideas. It was about survival, labor, and a desperate search for opportunity under a new colonial master, the United States. This is when a new kind of pioneer emerged, one whose legacy would be written not in books, but in the sweat of their brow. They were called the Sakadas. Starting in 1906, the powerful Hawaiian Sugar Planters Association recruited Filipino men, mostly from the Ilocos and Visayan regions, to work on the massive sugar and pineapple plantations of Hawaii. Over the next 4 decades, more than 125,000 Filipinos made the tough journey across the Pacific. They were promised a better life, but what they found was backbreaking work in grueling conditions. The Sakadas were treated like tools, doing the hardest jobs for the lowest wages. They often worked 10-hour days, 26 days a month, just to send a few precious dollars back to the families they'd left behind. Even during the Great Depression, these workers were sending hundreds of thousands of dollars home to the Philippines each month. an early sign of the economic lifeline that migration would become. But the story of the Sakadas isn't just about hardship. It's a story of incredible resilience. These weren't just temporary workers. They were the architects of the first major Filipino communities abroad. They planted their own food and fished to survive, but more importantly, they organized. Facing systemic injustice, the Sakadas became the heart of the labor union movement in Hawaii. Their numbers and courage were key to landmark strikes that won better wages and conditions for all plantation workers. From this struggle, leaders emerged. Men like Larry Itliong, who would later co-found the United Farm Workers in California with Cesar Chavez, started his fight in these fields. Writers like Carlos Bulasan gave a powerful voice to the migrant experience, and his book, America is in the Heart, became a classic, capturing the pain and fierce hope of a generation. The Sakadas and others like them in California did more than just work the land. They built communities from scratch, fought for rights they were denied, and carved out a space for themselves in a hostile world. They endured so much, but in doing so, they laid the foundation for the millions who would follow. Section 3. A Nation on the Move. War, Policy, and the Making of a Modern Diaspora. The middle of the 20th century brought global chaos, and with it, a huge shift in the story of Filipino migration. World War II and a major change in government policy set the stage for the mass migration we see today. During World War II, the Filipino spirit of resilience was on full display. Beyond the battlefield, people like Maria Ilagan Orosa, a brilliant food scientist, became an unsung hero. She invented life-saving foods like soyalac, a nutrient-rich powder, and darak, a rice bran bread that helped countless people survive starvation during the Japanese occupation. At the same time, thousands of Filipinos served with Allied forces. After the war, many of these veterans moved to the United States, where they spent decades fighting another battle, the fight for the recognition and benefits they were promised. But the single biggest event to shape the modern Filipino diaspora happened in 1974. Facing unemployment and unrest, President Ferdinand Marcos signed Presidential Decree 442, the Labor Code of the Philippines. Buried in that code was the beginning of a systematic state-run program for overseas employment. This was the turning point. What was once a trickle of people seeking a better life became a flood, now officially encouraged by the government. The Marcos administration created agencies like the Overseas Employment Development Board to market Filipino labor to the world. It was pitched as a temporary fix for the economy, but it quickly became a permanent pillar. The policy had a huge, twofold effect. On one hand, it was an economic lifeline. Filipino engineers went to the Middle East, and medical professionals found work in the US and Canada. The money they sent home, remittances, propped up the national economy. On the other hand, it institutionalized a national sacrifice. The term overseas contract worker, or OCW, became a household name, representing a new reality where an entire generation grew up with parents they rarely saw. It also kicked off a brain drain, as many of the country's best and brightest left for opportunities abroad. The 1974 Labor Code didn't just create a program. It reshaped the Filipino family and the nation's psyche. It turned migration into a national industry, a complicated legacy that continues to define the country to this day. The courage of these generations is just incredible. And for so many, this story is deeply personal. Do you have a family member, a parent, a sibling, an uncle, an aunt who is an OFW? We'd be honored if you shared a story of their strength and sacrifice in the comments below. Take a moment to honor your family's hero. And if this story is resonating with you, Please consider liking this video and subscribing for more that explores our shared history. The seeds planted by Rizal, the Sakadas, and the policies of the 20th century have grown into one of the largest and most influential diasporas in the world. This is the era of the Bagong Bayani, the modern-day hero. President Corazon Aquino coined the term in 1988, and it perfectly captures the nation's reverence for the millions of overseas Filipino workers, OFWs, who are the engines of the modern Philippine economy. The scale is just staggering. Today, an estimated 10 million Filipinos work in nearly every country on Earth. The money they send home is the stuff of economic legend. In 2024, personal remittances hit a record-breaking $34 billion. That figure is about 8.3% of the nation's entire gross domestic product, GDP. To put that in perspective, the Philippines is the fourth largest recipient of remittances in the world, trailing only giants like India, Mexico, and China. This constant flow of cash keeps the economy afloat and supports millions of families. But the numbers don't tell the whole human story. The impact of the modern Filipino diaspora goes far beyond money. They are changing the very fabric of the societies they join. Think of the global healthcare system. In places like the United States and the United Kingdom, Filipino nurses are the compassionate, highly skilled backbone of hospitals and clinics. An estimated 20% of all registered nurses in California are Filipino. They are on the front lines, providing critical care with a unique brand of empathy. Look to the world's oceans. The global shipping industry would grind to a halt without Filipino seafarers. They make up roughly a quarter of all merchant marine crews worldwide, ensuring that goods and fuel reach every corner of the globe. Consider the skylines of the Middle East or the tech hubs of Silicon Valley. Filipino engineers, architects, and IT professionals are there, known for their strong work ethic and adaptability. Back home, the business process outsourcing, BPO industry, employs over 1 million Filipinos, acting as a virtual workforce for global companies. And now, the children and grandchildren of the first migrants are becoming leaders. They are activists, entrepreneurs, and politicians in countries like Australia and the United States. They are artists and chefs introducing the world to Filipino culture. The modern Filipino isn't just a guest in a foreign land. They are essential. They are the quiet heroes who power our interconnected world. One remittance, one patient cared for, and one ship sailed at a time. That title, Bagong Bayani, or modern-day hero, is earned, and it comes at an immense price. The story of the global Filipino is one of incredible triumph, but it's just as much a story of profound sacrifice. If you ignore that, you miss the whole point. The most obvious cost is the separation of families. For every dollar sent home, there's a missed birthday, a graduation watched on a video call, a holiday spent alone. Millions of Filipino kids have grown up in transnational families, raised by grandparents or relatives while their parents work thousands of miles away. The emotional toll of this, on both parents and children, is a deep, unquantifiable wound. Then there's the brain drain. The same skills that make Filipinos so valuable globally, their expertise in nursing, engineering, and other fields, represent a huge loss of talent for the Philippines itself. A registered nurse in the Philippines might earn less than a tenth of what they could make in the US, creating an incentive to leave that the home country just can't compete with. And the path abroad is often dangerous. Many workers, especially women in domestic roles, face exploitation, abuse, and inhumane conditions. Stories of mistreatment are tragically common, and the vulnerability of being a foreign worker is a constant source of fear. This is the complicated legacy. The reliance on remittances has, in some ways, created a dependency that lets systemic problems at home, like a lack of good jobs, continue. The labor export program, once a temporary fix, has become a multi-generational reality. And yet, in the face of all this, what shines through is an unbreakable sense of resilience. The loneliness Rizal felt in Europe, the discrimination the Sakadas faced on the plantations, these struggles are echoed in the lives of modern OFWs, but so is their strength. This is the real source of Pinoy pride. It's not a blind, flag-waving nationalism. It's a pride forged in sacrifice. It's the pride of knowing your family is okay because of your hardship. It's the pride of being the best in your field, no matter where you are. It's the pride of sending your child to college, building a home, and keeping your nation's economy afloat, all while living a life far from everything you know and love. The Filipino diaspora is a story of paradox, of leaving to build a home, of separation to hold a family together, of individual sacrifice for collective survival. It is a legacy of pain, but also one of profound, world-changing pride. From the ink of one man's pen in a cold European apartment to the digital chime of a multi-billion-dollar remittance industry, the story of the Philippines has never been contained by its shores. It's a story written in every time zone, spoken in every language, and built by the hands of millions who dared to leave. They left seeking knowledge and brought home a revolution of ideas. They left seeking work and built new worlds. They left seeking a future for their families, and in doing so, they became the bedrock of their nation and an indispensable part of our global community.